Hey there YouTube lovers, my name is BB8 and today I am going to review The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Wait a minute, doesn't Ocarina of Time already have the certified gold perk? Yes, it does, but I've never actually justified why Ocarina of Time's in certified gold. Like, there's still a list of games that have the certified gold perk but haven't had review videos, and Ocarina of Time is one of them until today. And I thought, after revisiting Ocarina of Time recently, I thought I might as well give it the review, because I'm going to do a Legend of Zelda ranking later in the year anyway, so I thought, let's review Ocarina of Time, because I do plan to review Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Breath of the Wild later in the year. Hopefully Twilight Princess, but now we're focusing on Ocarina of Time. So, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we, for the gameplay. I still think The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time offers a great gameplay experience decades after it released. Ocarina of Time is where the groundwork for future 3D Zelda games was established. Because if it wasn't for Ocarina of Time, we wouldn't have everything else that came out. The lock-on targeting mechanism, or Z targeting as we'll call it, was one of the best features in the game at the time. And the C buttons on the N64 controller were cleverly used, which does contribute to the overall game's design as well, because the C buttons were used in a variety of ways, such as being able to switch which tools Link is using, or play the ocarina at a time where a riddle needs to be solved. I do feel like the way the C buttons are used in Ocarina of Time does contribute to one of the most creative uses of the C buttons on the Nintendo 64. And I do feel like this is a great example of gameplay that's aged really well. And I feel like one of my favourite aspects of the game is how the gameplay continually changes as you advance through the story, as I do feel like Link's tools are simple when you use them as a child, but when you reach adult Link, it adds a whole new level of tools that Link can use. Every dungeon, side mission, and minigame does have a new item to offer that Link can use as well, which does bring in some more mechanics to solve the dungeons with, and it ensures that the pacing ensures that you never feel stuck in like any area within the game. And I still feel like an Ocarina of Time is still clear on why the game did raise the standards for 3D game design, and it does have a perfect balance between puzzle solving, exploration, and combat. And one thing I almost forgot to bring up in the video is the boss design in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Because The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time has peak boss design, especially for a Nintendo 64 title. Because the bosses within the game are creative, blending in the mechanics that you earn throughout the game, the overall atmosphere, and I like how the puzzle solving within each boss feels unique as well, with each of them feeling unique and stays true to the overall theme of their temple as well. And the bosses in here do often require players to utilize the items that they acquire throughout the game in a variety of creative ways. One of my favorite bosses in the game has to be the twin witches Kume and Kutake in the Spirit Temple, especially because their battle is dynamic and memorable, where you first fight them off individually and then as combined. And I feel like the use of the mirror shield in this boss is what makes the boss so good. And for a game that came out in 1998, the depth to the boss design is so great. If I had to say Ocarina of Time did one thing better than Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, It's the boss design for the graphics, performance, and the art direction for a game that was published on the Nintendo 64. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a visually stunning game, and while modern players may notice some weird textures within the game, it came out in 1998, so I'm not actually gonna consider that as like a flaw. But in 1998 standards, it looked great visually, because this was the gold standard for 3D adventure games. The game does go through a wide variety of tones, such as the comforting warmth of Kokiri Forest and the dark, shadowy vibe of the Shadow Temple, with a well-considered use of colour, lighting, and camera angles to contribute to that as well. And I do feel like the art direction within the game is strong because of that. But what makes Ocarina of Time stand out in terms of its visuals and art direction is the use of some of the effects. Since I do feel like the visuals were ahead of its time in some areas, such as the twisting tunnel in the Forest Temple, or the strange drop in Ganon's castle where the corridor just stretches. And there's a boss where you fight this water blob as well, which does strengthen the creative flair in the visuals ahead of its time as well. Ocarina of Time does not stand out because of pure realism. The overall mood of Ocarina of Time is what makes it stand out to me, because I feel like every area within the game does make it stand out very well, not just in story, but in emotion as well. The transition from Child Link to Adult Link is well implemented, and it's not just Link that changes when you switch between the two. The environment actually physically changes as well, because when you go to Adult Link, everything appears more dark in the Kingdom of Hyrule, and when you transition back to Child Link, everything seems normal. Hyrule Field also does benefit from this thanks to its fog effects, which does add a feeling of mystery to the game as well. And despite Ocarina of Time not being a photorealistic game, I still feel like Ocarina of Time has a timeless aesthetic to it. And that's what makes Ocarina of Time age so well, despite not being photorealistic. For the characters, even though Ocarina of Time does not have voice acting like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, their roles and facial expressions do make quite an impression on the game, since Link's transformation from child to adult is quite relatable. And despite his silence throughout the game, I just feel like Link is easy to get into as a character. And one of the most recognizable plot points of Ocarina of Time is Princess Zelda and her transformation into Sheik, which does highlight her courage and brilliance throughout the game. And the real highlight of Ocarina of Time is Ganondorf, who does feel more legendary in this game than in other iterations of Ganondorf. Because I'm not gonna lie, Ganondorf is my favorite villain in all of gaming. I would go as far to say he is my favorite Zelda character, because he's manipulative, which I still feel his presence even when he's not present on screen during that scene. And I just feel like, and Ganondorf is the standard for villainy within the Zelda series, or maybe gaming overall. And Ocarina of Time probably has the best portrayal of Ganondorf so far. I also did like his portrayal in Tears of the Kingdom, but Ocarina of Time, in terms of how Ganondorf's portrayed, cannot be topped. Ganondorf does have a plausible goal, and the feeling of his threat is so obvious that your path does seem filled with a whole bunch of stakes and losses as you progress through the game because of supporting characters like Saria, Ruto, and Naburo, who do lend personality to Link and their positions as well. And I do feel like Ocarina of Time actually does have a whole bunch of characters you'll care about as you progress through the game, not just the plot. Speaking of which, for the story. Ocarina of Time is one of the most well-told time travel stories, not just in a game, but media overall. In addition to the amazing variety this game has, the game's dual timeline structure within childhood and adulthood does capture the themes of loss, maturity, and fate quite well. Because after 7 years, the Kingdom of Hyrule does go through a dramatic transformation rather than being used as a plot device. And you, playing as Link, have to go on a mission to face how much has changed during Link's absence in Hyrule and how much people are lost. It's strong and it's unforgettable as well. The story's skill in using gameplay to improve its message is very striking. And Link's development is not limited to just the stories in The Legend of Zelda either. It is seen in the skills that you obtain throughout the game, the Master Sword, which is a representation of change, as well as the iconic weapon, and the story's tragedy that Link has very little choice but to act heroically to ensure that a Hyrule that's been altered without him can be saved. In comparison to other time travel movies like Back to the Future and The Lord of the Rings, Ocarina of Time is probably one of those games that does time travel the best. And finally, we have one of the strongest aspects in Ocarina of Time, the soundtrack, which is probably the strongest from the N64 era and one of the most iconic in Nintendo's history. Since every music track within Ocarina of Time does add a mood to the different locations throughout Hyrule, such as the aura in the Lost Woods, and the catchy tune of Hyrule Field. Even decades after release, music tracks like Zelda's Lullaby and Song of Storms do hit with me well due to Koji Kondo's haunting yet but simple compositions to the game. I don't feel like anyone else can compose a Zelda game outside of Koji Kondo. Like, obviously you can't have a Zelda game not composed by him. And what makes the soundtrack even better is how it's incorporated into the gameplay. The ocarina, which is an important tool throughout the game, is a tool that does allow you to play the tunes and help you commit to them as you progress through the game. The ocarina can be used in different ways, to fast travel to different locations, to grant access to different areas with Zelda's Lullaby, and to make it rain with the Song of Storms. Few games actually do this, but the integration of the soundtrack like Ocarina of Time into the gameplay does make the music feel unforgettable, especially within the game's design, and it strengthens the overall emotional core between the gameplay and the game itself. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is more than just a classic. It is one of gaming's greatest landmarks that still holds up decades later. The targeting system in the game is revolutionary, the dungeons are well designed, the soundtrack is iconic, and the game has masterclass storytelling and masterclass boss design. The boss designs are probably some of the best we've seen in the Zelda series, and the puzzle solving depth in the game is really great as well. The Legend of Zelda franchise is such a great franchise outside of those bad ones, but Ocarina of Time is one of the most unforgettable experiences that has aged very well, and that is why it still holds the certified gold perk. And overall, I give The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time a 10 out of 10. After revisiting Ocarina of Time, it's not just a game that's ahead of its time, and it's a prime example of what timeless game design looks like. I do feel like every revisit with Ocarina of Time gets better and better, especially with the art direction, the dungeon design. Pretty much everything about this game is great, and it's nearly impossible to find something I don't like about it. And Ocarina of Time, being one of the most influential titles in all of gaming, still sticks around with me even to this day. So guys, what did you think of my review of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time? In terms of BB8’s reviews, I am starting to play Assassin's Creed Shadows again, meaning that I should be able to get out a review out in June, but next is likely the last game I'm playing on Switch 1 being The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. But I do have another game on the table as well, being Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants Unleashed, which I will be giving a review very soon. So, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss another video like this one in the future. And I will see you all in a future video. BB8 out.